Oh boy, the time has finally come. It has been a hot minute since I last made one tier list for Honkai Star Rail, and I decided that now's about as good a time as any to go ahead and make my new one. Uh, the last one I made, I believe it was 1.2. It is now 2.3. So it's been a while, and honestly, I think we should just get right into it. So the real question is, how do I want to structure this? Uh, let's see. Do we have alternate MCs on this version? We do not. Uh, I will just, since you can only have one version of an MC active at a given time anyway, I will just pretend that the preservation and destruction MCs just don't exist. Because I will always pick Harmony because that one is the best. And since we're already here, I'm going to go ahead and put them in A. And I'll just let the male version sit down here. Basically, the Harmony MC, because of Super Break and the way that it works, how much damage it increases your team. Super Break just increases your damage a lot. So Harmony MC is just really, really good. Basically turns any character into a DPS if they can do a lot of toughness reducing damage. Some of the less obvious examples are characters like Sampo. Got characters like let's see, Welt. You can go with Jing Yuan. Obviously, you don't want to build them that way because it's just generally inefficient. But then there's the obvious examples of Boot Hill and Firefly. I'll get to them in a minute. They actually scale off break effect and do a lot of break damage. But Harmony MC, because you get Eidolons, because they're totally 100% free, it's just a really strong character. No real downsides as far as I can see. So I'm gonna put him in A tier. I'm not gonna put him quite into S tier, because break-oriented things are at least somewhat niche. If any situation where you can't break something, the value just plummets. So it's hard for me to want to put a character like that all the way up in S tier, but they're pretty close. They're like right at the top of A tier for me. March. Uh, there's just way better shielders, way better follow attack units. Um, Probably Freeze is like the only thing left that she's ever really used for. And even that's like a maybe. I don't think I could think of any situation where I would want to do that. If she was good at the start of the game, she's fallen off pretty hard now. So I think I'm actually gonna go all the way down to D. There's just really no reason to ever use her for anything. See, Dun Hung, basically the same reason. There's just too many good DPSs, and he just doesn't really have any place anymore. Let's see, Asta. Asta's always been pretty good. Like speed that she gives, attack is fine. Some characters use it better than others. I think I'm gonna go with B. Uh, I just realized that there's an extra tier list here, part of the tier here, but I don't know what that's for. Uh, so I'll just ignore that. Arlen, uh, everyone knows he's at the bottom. Like literally useless. No one ever uses him for anything. Let's see, Herda. Herda's really good now because since the last tier list I'm in, they came out with Pure Fiction, and she's just the like absolute queen of that game mode. It's really, really good, really, really strong. But it's only really that one game mode. I think I'm gonna go with B. Really solid, can't go wrong with her, but I don't think she's quite as like universal as characters like Harmony MC. So I'm gonna go down to B. Hook. We're gonna go Hmm. Yeah, we're gonna go D. Uh, they're just better options. Like a lot of the characters you'll see in D, even if they aren't necessarily bad, you could use them. Just the alternatives to them are just way better. And I feel like Hook is a good example of that, especially now that Firefly's a thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. So Hook goes in D. Natasha will also go in D. She's just uh, a sustain unit in a sea of better sustain units. So yeah, just go in D. Sampo, I'd give him a C. Uh, Not as good as either Astra or Herta in my opinion, but still pretty solid. Like uh, if I had to pick a DOT unit and I didn't have Black Swan, it would be him. Uh, but it is generally pretty good in my opinion. No real complaints. Uh, Pela, she's going right up there into A tier. Uh, she's always been really strong. Again, no real faults that would put her anywhere lower. I mean, I guess you could argue that the her E4 that gives her skill the ice resistance reduction on enemies. That I guess is a little niche. Uh, but it's nowhere near like bad enough for me to want to put her anywhere lower than A. The defense shred is like universally strong thing to have for any team comp. She's just really, really good, and I don't think I need to explain too much on that. Serval, I'm gonna put C alongside Sampo. Just I put her above the characters in D, but again below B. Just really solid overall. If you want to use her, you should find decent success, I'd say. Uh, yeah. Basically, C tier is like C and D tier are fairly interchangeable to me. It's just that C just is better enough that I would go up one tier, basically. Uh, just C is like the mid tier, if you ask me. Like, not particularly bad, but not particularly good either. Just right there in the middle of the road. Qingchua. Okay, because Sparkle exists, and Sparkle's really, really, really good, especially with Qingchua, I actually think I want to go with A. Because if you have E6, which isn't that hard, I think you get some free copies just from playing the game. I think you do anyway. I might be misremembering that. But really strong, feels really good to play. I debate. Looking at this now with Herta down here and her up here. Ooh. You know what? Since she's only really good in one team comp, I actually think I'll go down to B. Pretty solid overall though, and at least arguably one of the best 4-star DPSs, like probably in like the top 5 at least. Uh, Pretty strong, but I think I'm gonna settle with B for now. Shu Shang. Ooh, that's a tough one actually. She's a break effect scaling, or I guess not scaling, but she utilizes weakness break and break effect. And that became a lot better with Harmony MC. Ooh. I think I'm gonna put her in B. Maybe C. Just because single target just generally isn't very good most of the time. There's just so many benefits from being able to hit multiple targets, and the game just gives you so many buffs that relate to hitting multiple targets. So being purely single target is a bit of a detriment. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna put her in C. I think even with Harmony MC, she's probably still middle of the road because they're just way better break options than her. Uh, but still pretty solid. But definitely better than D. Let's see. Ting Yun is next. Ting Yun. Yeah, I'm put her A. I mean, she's kind of fallen a bit by the wayside. There's like no real like metas that revolve around her, but she's always been really good. Any unit that uses energy or needs energy, any DPS, you bring Ting Yun or Ho Ho, but Ting Yun is a little more reliable for that sort of thing. And that's always been pretty good. is still pretty good. It's just that there's no real metas that revolve around it, so she's kind of, you know, fallen to the background a little bit. But still pretty good. I'm gonna put her in A. Himiko, again, weakness break got really good, and she revolves around weakness break, and she's been really, really good since Pure Fiction came out. I think. Oh, this one's tough because her best partner is Herta, who I put in B tier. But I could see the argument for Harmony MC being just enough to push her up into A tier. I'll put her in A tier. I think I'm pretty confident with that. She's going in A tier. Welt, as a sustain unit, there are better sustains. As like a debuffing unit, there are better debuffers. He's not so bad, but he's kind of just lost his place as time has gone on, and he's just kind of drifts somewhere in the middle now for me. I guess as like a DPS, I could see him being used with like Harmony MC because he does do a lot of toughness reducing damage with his skill and with his ultimate. But beyond that, I think he's kind of just okay. Bronya has fallen off quite a bit because they've just released so many top tier Harmony units. But she's not fallen off enough to go down to C. She's still fairly high, I'd say. Question is, where exactly do I put her? I think I'm gonna go with B. Because the other units I'm gonna put, I think I already know that I'm gonna put them in either S or A. And if I'm directly comparing them, I think I would have to put Bronya just like one tier lower than like the lowest one on that. But you know, action advanced by 100%, fairly big damage boost, attack boost, crit damage boost. Really good, really solid. You can't really go wrong with her. I guess now the question is, do I think Himiko is better than Bronya? Actually, no, I don't. I don't. And I've kind of talked myself down a little bit with Himiko because when I directly compare it to Bronya, with every factor taken into consideration, I think I'd put them in the same tier. I think I would. Here, I'm gonna rearrange a little bit. I'll put Bronya at the very top, Himiko right beneath her, Herta beneath Himiko, and Qingchua beneath Herta. That's a pretty good order. I probably go Palo at the top of A tier for now. Let's see. Welch can be top of C tier. That's fine with me. That's fine with me. Okay. Moving on. Let's see. Clara. Again, Clara's kind of just middle of the road for me. There's really nowhere I could think of where she's like, oh, this is just insane unit. She's just fairly solid all around. I think I'd go just below Welt in C tier. I mean, as far as like survivability is concerned, she's one of the better units, but with some of the really good sustain units that we have, you don't really need each unit to be that survivable. So it's like, that's like her major like use. Her damage is fairly middling, I'd say. So yeah, I think C tier is fair. Let's see, who's this? Japard. All right, well, Aventurine exists, but Japard is still pretty good. I think I'm gonna go B tier because his shields are just generally pretty strong, easy to play. He's good in literally every situation, everywhere you could possibly put him. You can't really go wrong with him. Pretty solid. I think, yeah, bottom of current B tier is fine for him. Let's see. Bailu is going right in the D tier. I despise Bailu. I despised her back then. I despise her now. Her healing capabilities are just completely subpar compared to what we have now. and there's just no real niche she fulfills anymore. I mean, if she ever did. Yeah, no. I just, since her skill, this is gonna come up later, so I might as well bring it up now. If you're too RNG reliant to be good, then I just don't like you. Okay, like if a character is just far too RNG reliant, then I don't think they're as good as whatever alternatives you may have. Even if technically they can be really good. In the case of Bailu, she can do a lot of healing, uh, but you need her bounce from her skill to hit who you want it to hit, and if it doesn't, it feels awful. At least for me. Uh, but yeah, no. Uh, this is definitely more of like a personal feelings type of pick for me. But she's going right in D tier. She's lucky she's not in Arlen tier. I don't like this character one little bit. Yan Qing. I think I'm gonna put him in Arlen tier. He's just never been very good, and literally nothing has come out to like force him to be good. Generally speaking, he's just, I don't know. He's just an objectively worse version of Jing Liu. And again, being purely single target doesn't help any characters at all in this game. And Yanqing is purely single target. Generally pretty weak, and I think it is actually weak enough to bring him down here. So that's why he's there. I'd still put him above Arlen, but I don't know. Maybe I could put him in here. This will be what this tier is for. It's the bad, but not Arlen bad. There, that's what that's what that tier could be. Let's see. Next is Sela. Sela is another character that feels like they've fallen off quite a bit. Question is how far though, because they haven't really given her anything to like make her stronger, and I feel like having to kill things for a hunt character is not good, because the whole point is that you're single target, right? But if you have to kill something to get maximum damage, that means you have to spend time not attacking like an elite or a boss. And if there are no weak enemies on the field, well then Sela almost doesn't get to have any bit of benefits at all from her passive resurgence procs, because she needs to kill things, and she also consumes more skill points even if she does kill things, because she has to consume a skill point every time she ever attacks to get maximum damage. And just so many units have come out that are just, their baseline strength is just higher than Sela's. It just is. They just do more damage. She takes more resources to do less damage. So she's fallen off pretty hard. Question is it hard enough to go down to D, or do I keep her in C? I think that's the real question for me. She still does a lot of damage in her own right. It's just compared to some of the other characters that have come out. So as like a DPS, she's pretty low. But it may not be fair to put her in C, because she does still do a decent amount of damage. Like definitely more than like these characters over here. I'm gonna put her in bottom of B. That's where I'm gonna put her. Jing Yuan. He actually is gonna go in C. I'll put him at the top of C. Because again, it's probably even worse for Jing Yuan, because he's had the most direct competition and like the worst falling off of like power. So let me think about this. Basically, Acheron exists, and because she exists, Jingwon literally has no purpose anymore. I mean, he is just a far worse version of Acheron. He does still do a lot of damage. So I mean, a lot is a bit of a stretch when you compare him to Acheron, but he still does a decent amount of damage. Definitely enough to put him at the top of C tier, maybe bottom of B tier. But you know what? Let's go ahead and just discuss Acheron. Acheron is S tier. She's the undisputed queen of Honkai Star Rail. She just is the strongest, and it's like hardly even a competition. Basically, the reason why I'm saying like it's like a direct comparison right now is that with Jing Yuan, he is an erudition, AOE, lightning DPS. Uh, Acheron is a nihility, AOE, lightning DPS. And if you ask me, there is one key difference between these two that makes Jing Yuan look so much worse by comparison. Uh, I guess the best way to put it would be to bring up the Bailu argument again, and it's that RNG. There's RNG built into this man's kit because if Lightning Lord attacks, that's the name of his passive. If you're watching this, I'm going to assume you know these kinds of things. If Lightning Lord attacks, there's a chance he will target because it's basically he chooses one main target and just hits everything else for adjacent damage. His main target that he chooses, to my knowledge, maybe they've changed it at some point, but it is random. You cannot choose who he will do the most damage to. In this game, if you are doing AoE damage, there's a good chance that there's like a central, like elite or boss enemy that you want most of your damage going to if you can do it that way. With Jing Yuan, you cannot choose to attack anything. You just gotta hope Lightning Lord attacks what you want it to attack. At least, in AoE. If it's single target, then obviously everything's gonna hit everything equally. I mean, all of his damage will go onto one enemy, obviously, if it's single target. But the thing with that is that all the rest of his damage is split evenly amongst all targets. So he does less damage by a very wide margin if he's only in single target. Whereas Acheron, all of her damage is single target focused and it hits adjacent enemies. Her ultimate does that, her skill does that. I mean, her basic attack doesn't do that, but who uses that? But the thing with Acheron and the way that she works is that she will apply a Crimson Knot stack to an enemy if you apply a debuff to that enemy. So because of this, and the way her kit works, you can choose who on the field, which enemy on the field gets Crimson Knot stacks, and those enemies that have that Crimson Knot stacks will receive the most damage whenever she goes to use her ultimate. So yes, with Acheron, she does, at a baseline, she does way more damage than Jing Yuan, and she can select who to target and hit the most with her ultimate. She's just objectively superior in every regard by a very wide margin. At least compared to Jing Yuan. And she just generally is better than every other DPS. Very little competition. There is one character that's given her competition, but we'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to go ahead and discuss this difference right now. Jing Yuan is very, very sad in the limited DPS category. He's pretty much bottom of the barrel. Yukong, her buffs are fine. It's just that you have to get to E6 before she even feels usable. So I think I would put her down in C tier. Like, you're never going to use her. And even if you think, oh, I kind of want to use these buffs, there's probably a better option that's just easier to use. So I'm inclined to put her way down here. I'll put her above Sampa, but below Clara. That's where I'll put her. Yeah, very, very extremely mid, and generally not worth putting too much time in. Let's see, Silverwolf. She has basically lost all purpose because of some of the new characters they've released. But she's a character who kind of gets slightly worse each new patch, because with each new patch, your roster of characters will expand. You'll get more and more characters, and the more characters you have, the weakness implant that she provides gets less and less valuable because you already have the options you need to like cater to whatever content you're in. Uh, so, and again, she is purely single target, which like 90% of the time, single target is like generally useless in my opinion. At the very least, there's nothing that does enough single. Like, okay, well, there's one thing, but there's very few things that actually do enough single target damage, or very few mechanics that revolve around single target type mechanics. Uh, I don't know. It's just generally she's dropped off by quite a bit. I'd probably still put her above some of these characters because what she does provide is fairly valuable, and she's like one of the best supports for Acheron currently. So she's still pretty good, I guess. Uh, but she's definitely starting to fall off a fair bit. I think I'll put her in B, below Bronya, but above Himiko. Let's see, Luocha, again, they're just better sustain options exist. I think he's probably in C tier. I definitely still put him above Bailu. Do I put him at the same level of value as these other characters up here? Like the same level of value of Japard? Yeah, probably. I think I'd go right here, below Herta but above Qingque. That's a fair spot to me because the Herta Himiko duo is a pretty potent. So I think it's fair to go ahead and put him just beneath that, those two characters. Let's see, Luca. I mean, there's like no reason to ever use Luca. I mean, maybe now that Harmony MC is a thing, I could see a break effect build with him going pretty good, but I haven't tested it. So for now, I think I'm just gonna put him C. Generally speaking, there's like another character, another single target oriented physical character that scales better with MC. So I'm inclined to just go ahead and put him in C tier. He's mostly fine. You probably won't go wrong if you decide to use him. Uh, but he's kind of just okay. Similar to Shushan, really. Let's see. Blade. Uh, he's a really good pickup for dual DPS teams, which are becoming more and more prevalent. So I think I'm still gonna put him in B tier, but again, when you compare any DPS to Acheron, their damage will just seem far inferior by comparison. Let's see, where would I put him though? Actually, I think I put him around the same level of value as Luocha. Probably. Their kits are pretty similar as well. Like, if you need a second DPS for a dual DPS team, Blade is probably a pretty good pickup. He fits pretty comfortably into pretty much any dual DPS team, except, ones that are more oriented towards things like Dot or Break Effect. But any other situation where you decide I want to use dual DPS, he's great. His damage is always great. He has a good survivability because he scales off mostly off of HP. His kit covers a wide variety of damage types as well. He does follow-up attacks, he does ultimate damage, he does basic attack damage. He covers a fairly wide range of things that make him generally pretty useful for a lot of different scenarios, as well as even things like simulated universe as well. So I think I'd probably go roughly B, basically above average, I'd say. Kafka, I'm gonna put her in A. She enables one of the best characters in the game. And as an enabler, as a dot enabler, she's just always going to be really, really good. So I think I'm pretty comfortable putting her in A. Like if I had to, I'm gonna compare her to B because I think it's as low as I'd go is B. If I compare her to anyone else in B, I would much rather have Kafka. She just is better, in my opinion. So Kafka, she's going in A. Lynx. This is gonna be the problem with a lot of abundance characters, is that there exists just better at least one better option for abundance. So it's really hard for me to even want to put him as high as B, just because that option I'm talking about exists. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and put Lynx in B. She has a lot of utility for a 4-star character, and is generally pretty good in most situations. If you don't have those other sustain characters, she's probably one of the best picks you can pick up. Not the best, but pretty fairly high up there. Let's see, Fushuan. Fushuan, I'm gonna go. This is hard too, because I'm inclined to put her in S. But there's another character that probably also deserves S. So do I want two sustained characters up in S tier? Yeah, I think I do. Fushuan is just insanely good. She's always been good. She'll continue to be good. Since she does like a whole damage reduction based on percent thing, she's also, at least in theory, like infinitely scalable to whatever content you're in, because she's just reducing the enemy's damage by X amount. I forget the exact percentages. Uh, yeah, no, she's pretty good. Can't really go wrong, and having the extra crit rate is always very nice and handy. Don Hung and Bibiter Lune. I'm gonna put him in A. He's a little more expensive. He's a little more needy. He needs more skill points, but his damage is pretty solid. He's one of those characters that maybe you don't think about it at first, but he actually does pair really nicely with Harmony MC. And Harmony MC can boost his damage pretty significantly, if you ask me. If you decide to build him with break effect in mind, because his enhanced basic attack reduces enemy toughness by quite a bit, and super break scales off of that quite a bit. So pretty strong. I feel like synergy with break effect, because I remember this is a tier list for right now as of 2.3, where break effect is like at its peak in terms of meta. So any character that pairs well with those kinds of teams, I'm automatically inclined to like put them just a little bit higher than some of the alternatives. Like if it was any other like meta right now, I'd probably put him down in B. That's like how, like, yeah, it's hard to describe, but he does still do a lot of damage, but the cost to how much damage he does, being all those skill points, can be a little much. But the fact that we're on like a break meta, coupled together with, I might as well go ahead and talk about it now, coupled together with Sparkle, does make me want to put Don Hung fairly high. They've given us a lot of stuff to make him pretty good overall in most situations. It's hard to go wrong with him. Gwenifin, she's in general just like a slightly worse Pela. So I think I'm gonna put her down in B. Question is where in B? With these other characters I'm seeing here, she's probably at the bottom of B for now. That's perfectly fine. I mean, she's generally more valuable than these characters, but she does take a while to ramp up her Fire Kiss, her damage boost. And on top of that, her damage boost does not impact break damage, to my knowledge. So in the current break meta, she's again just a little less valuable, uh, but still pretty solid overall. Jing Liu, again, if I'm comparing her to someone like Acheron, she just doesn't do as much damage. I guess the real question is, does she have the same overall level of value as Don Hung? And I forgot to talk about Sparkle. I should probably talk about Sparkle. Sparkle is really good. Provides a ton of crit damage, advances your actions forward a little bit, and also provides tons of skill points. A character who provides skill points and tons of crit damage will always be at least a little bit good until they come out with like a Harmony character that just does the same thing but better. Or just something similar that has similar levels of value but better. I'm not sure exactly what that would be, but she's definitely feels like I'm just a better version of Bronya, in my opinion. So that's the reason why I'm gonna go ahead and put her in A tier. probably right here. Above Harmony MC, but below Pela, I'd say. Like, the level of value Pela provides for just for being a 4-star, but with as big of a defense threat as she gets, with uh, being able to apply it to all enemies and the event icon you can give her. Pela's just insanely good for a 4-star, so she's probably gonna stay at the top of A tier for a while. But that's my logic. That's my reasoning. She's pretty good, but she is a limited 5-star, and depending on who you pair with her, maybe she's not gonna get the full value of her kit. Uh, so pretty good. Definitely like within the top ranks. Maybe just slightly below Bela. Anyway, Jing Liu, uh, similar logic to Dan Heng in the sense that like she just does a lot of damage. You can't really go wrong with her. She hasn't really changed much. Like no characters they've released have been like a huge boost or anything to her kit. Uh, Still just pretty solid, great for MOC. Uh, I haven't tested her out with Apocalyptic Shadow yet, but I assume she's good for that too, since she does a lot of single target damage, or a decent amount anyway. Uh, Pretty solid overall. No real complaints. Topaz. Topaz is going in B. Really good for follow-up attack teams. Kind of just okay everywhere else. So she's going in B. Hanya. Let's see. Hanya. Basically just a worse Sparkle. So I think I'm actually going to put her down in C. Somewhere around here. I'm thinking above Yukong. I'm actually gonna put her above Clara too. She's still fairly good. Like if Sparkle didn't exist, she'd be like one of the go-to options for skill point management. So I think she's still fairly okay, but I'd still put her in C. She's fairly mid. Ho Ho. Ooh, this is actually hard. Okay, so do I put her all the way up in S? She provides tons of cleanses, a fair amount of energy and attack buffs. I think the real value with this character is that cleanse. It's very nice, but I don't necessarily think it's the end all be all. Like it's not so good that I'd put her all the way up at S, I don't think. And the rest of her kit is fairly just okay. Not every character in the game can take full advantage of it. And her ultimate also just costs a lot, so it's hard to get up there. It's difficult to maintain uptime on the buffs, on the benefits from Ho-Ho's ultimate. So I think I am gonna bump her down to A instead of S. I think I'm gonna go right here. Maybe above Kafka. Roughly in this area. It's fine with me. Argenti, he's kind of fallen off a little bit for me. He's only really good in Pure Fiction. Everywhere else, he's kind of just okay. So I think I'm gonna put him at the bottom of B. I think that's fair. He's just fairly solid. Let's see. Zhui got better with Harmony MC because she's a break effect scaling unit. But is she good enough to compete with the other, to be like at the same level as these characters in A tier? No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to put her right here behind her now. I think that's a fair spot. She is pretty strong now that the break meta is a thing, now that Harmony MC is a thing. But I don't think I can go any higher than that. I think that's a perfectly fair assessment of her overall value. Let's see, Dr. Ratio. This is tough too. He's probably similar in terms of overall value to Don Hung and Bimmerlune, if I'm being entirely honest. An Apocalyptic Shadow does favor single target damage dealers who can break things, at least right now. So he's probably a little better. That's probably a fair placement for this character. He's always been pretty good, pretty solid. They've come out with a lot of characters and scenarios, I guess you could say, that are just really well suited towards him. He's yeah, he's pretty solid. I'm going with that. Ruan Mei, S tier. Very easy S tier for me. If you ask me, she's the real enabler for the break meta. Maybe even just a little more so than Harmony MC. Because she gives the whole team weakness break efficiency. She gives the whole team break effect. She in maybe it's not fair to talk about it, but if you do have her E1, she also gives defense shredding or defense ignoring. Uh, she just, if you ask me, she's like the true linchpin to what really makes super break teams work. And she's just, even beyond that, she's just extremely universal, very good buffs just in general. Very, very strong. Put her in S. Let's see. Misha, I gotta be honest, I've barely even touched this character. I have no idea if they're actually good or bad. Uh, Based on what I saw, though, I assume he's probably not that good. I think I'm gonna just shove him in D. If I'm wrong, then by all means let me know. But nothing about his kit made me think, oh, I gotta try this out. He just seemed relatively meager and just not all that interesting to me. So D tier it is. Black Swan, another S tier for me. Extremely universal, sort of sub DPS. At least if you ask me. In a dot team, she's the reason they work and why they're as powerful as they are. If you pair with Kafka, at least. Uh, I tend to pair pretty frequently with both Doctor Ratio and Acheron because she provides a lot of debuffs fairly frequently. It's not obviously it's not ideal for Doctor Ratio, but it is a pretty solid option if you don't have anyone else. Her own damage is really, really good. She's basically perfect for pure fiction and enables tons of damage for both Memory of Chaos and Apocalyptic Shadow. Uh, Really, really strong. Oh, and another thing I should mention is that defense shredding, similar to Pela, defense shredding just is a very universal way to increase your damage. It like increases your overall damage output for literally every damage type, including break damage. Uh, Really, really good. Really, really like her. Or right up there in S. Gallagher, he's probably A tier right now. Uh, I'd probably go ahead and put him above Woho, actually. Again, break damage, break effect is just really, really good right now. All the end game modes, all the new characters revolve around it. Uh, so they're just pushing like a break effect meta at the moment. So at least for now, for this current patch of 2.3, he just is really, really strong, really, really effective, and you just can't go wrong with him. Uh, yeah, and if you ask me, even if it was meta, his overall capabilities as a healer are just bizarrely strong. Like to the point where he just feels like a direct upgrade from characters like Luocha, even a natural like limited 5-star healer. He feels like a direct upgrade from that, which is crazy to me. But anyway, moving on. Venturing. As much as I personally hate this band for constant, because he is RNG. Don't make no mistake. A lot of his kit is heavily RNG focused. His overall raw strength, even with that taken into account, is still like enough for me to put him all the way up in this tier. Yes, he is that strong. But because I personally feel salty about all the bad luck I have with this man, he's going to the bottom. I don't care what anyone says. Uh, God, he's so horrible but so perfect at the same time. Robin. Robin's really good. Uh, Probably top of A for me. I mean, I think she advances your whole team forward by 100% whenever you use the ultimate. She also increases your attack by, It scales off her attack, I think, but I think relatively easy to obtain number is like 1,000, I think. I'm not sure what the exact values you can get from her, but uh, roughly 1,000 attack for any allied unit. She also does additional damage whenever you attack while her ultimate is active. Just tons of extra damage, action advancing. Uh, she specifically buffs follow attack units by a fair amount, but it's not so much that it's like the end all be all. You can use her pretty much anywhere. Really, really good. Not quite good enough for me to want to put her in S tier, especially not for 2.3, but still really good, really solid. Next is Boot Hill. Boot Hill's another A tier, I think. He is single target, and he doesn't do like a ton of frequent attacks like Dr. Ratio does. But I think his raw power is enough to put him pretty high up on A tier, if you ask me. Like, I think I'm gonna go right next to Harmony MC. Yeah. Like, as a single target DPS with this character, with Harmony MC, he is pretty unparalleled. If he has one flaw, which might be enough to actually make me want to bump him down, is the fact that you need to break or kill something. If you don't do that, sooner rather than later, he will be doing practically no damage for a good long while. You need him to break things or kill things, which is it's not a huge problem. But if you are in a situation like Apocalyptic Shadow, for example, and the only enemies are boss or elite enemies, and you can't break them or kill them, then he just won't be doing very much damage for the start of the battle, which is a bit unfortunate. But thankfully, when you do get those stacks, he just keeps it for the rest of the fight. So you don't have to worry about losing stacks or anything. So I think that benefit kind of outweighs the detriment of maybe not getting stacked early on. And he does do a decent amount of damage. Break effect scaling. Break effect is definitely better right now. Pretty solid. So I'm going to put him in A tier. Next is Firefly. And she's got right up there in the S tier. Damage is absolutely insane. I'd probably put her right next to Acheron. I think she's kind of like, so with Boot Hill, he has that potential flaw. With Acheron, sorry, not Acheron, with Firefly, she doesn't really have that flaw like at all. You don't have to worry about getting stacks of anything. You just use her skill, and boom, in a turn one, she's full power, ready to go. So generally really, really good for that sort of reason. But she is a break effect unit, so if you aren't breaking things, her damage will fall off a little bit. But when you actually do break things, her damage goes high enough to like offset that loss of DPS, if you ask me. So she's just really, really, really good. She has self-action advancement by 100%. She has like self-cleansing, where she removes all debuffs if she has 100 when she gets to 100 energy. She reduces damage by, I think the max is like 30 or 40%. Ridiculously survivable with tons of like self utility. She's just kind of insane how good she is, and she is probably the best enabler for Harmony MC's super break damage. In the sense that, like, well, the way Harmony MC works is that the more break effect you have, right, the higher all the stuff for super break, more break effect, higher level, and basically weakness break efficiency, or like toughness reducing damage, however you want to call it. Firefly has all those things and attacks a lot of things frequently, which is like the best. The only way she would be better for Harmony MC is if she attacked literally every enemy unit on the field and broke everything all the time. Because the more things you attack on the field, with all the things that affect Super Break, the more damage you will do, the more damage your Harmony MC will enable you to do. So extremely high level of synergy between these two. Uh, enough to bump her up to S tier for me, and to put her around the same level as Acheron, our current DPS queen. Very, very good. Jade is not out yet at the time of recording this, but everything I've heard about her says she's pretty solid, probably A tier. So just consider this a prediction. She's probably somewhere around, I'm gonna say here, probably roughly in that area, like the upper like half of A tier is probably roughly where she is. Uh, but overall, that is my list. I'm pretty satisfied with it. Uh, if you agree, by all means, let me know. If you disagree, tell me why. I'd love to know why. But I feel like this is a fairly accurate tier list that represents the current status of the game and all its characters. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next video.